Hi, I'm Matt from Black Box Mind. I hadn't intended on posting a follow-up video to the previous tutorial that I did, but unfortunately I actually made a couple of mistakes that I think I should probably fix, and also I've been asked to show the techniques being applied in a couple of different editing softwares, which I'm more than happy to do. So I suppose that we should probably start off with the mistakes that I made. Now, in the previous tutorial I stated that, or even simpler editing software like Adobe Premiere Rush, or maybe even iMovie, I think. A lot of these techniques are going to apply just as much to those softwares as it does to Final Cut Pro. Now, it was actually only after publishing that I went and checked Adobe Rush and iMovie, and the looping technique works in both of those programs, but unfortunately the blend modes and the masking don't. So my sincere apologies for saying that they did. Lesson learnt, fact check before you publish. Idiot. Anyway, I'm going to show you how to do it in Adobe Premiere and also DaVinci Resolve. I want to show you in DaVinci Resolve because previously I said that you could do this animation for free, and DaVinci Resolve you can download and use for free. And I'll show you Adobe Premiere Rush as well. Not Adobe Premiere Rush, Adobe Premiere as well, just because I may as well kill two birds with one stone. In these I'm just going to be showing applying the techniques, not going into depth about each of the different techniques, simply because I covered that in the last one. So if you want more in-depth information on what each of these techniques are doing, then check out the last video. And so yeah, I'll start off with DaVinci Resolve, and if you want to skip ahead to Premiere, then skip ahead to this part of the video. And yeah, okay, so let's get started. Okay, so here we are in Resolve, and I've already imported in the different elements that I'm using for the animation. So I've got the background animated ring, just like the last time, the slow moving particles, the more volatile particles here, Nico's marvelous logo, and also the light leaks as well. So we'll start off with the looping. So let's drag down this universe clip onto the timeline. Now, actually what we want to do is, because we're going to be having two video elements underneath, we'll just start off by dragging it up to video layer number 3. And what we're going to do is, just as before in the previous tutorial, trim the beginning and end. So here we're going to trim and trim again. And what I quite like about DaVinci Resolve is that when you're adjusting the clips, if it's red, that means you're right at the end of the clip, and then if it turns green, that means you've got a few frames spare at the end of the clip as well, which is quite cool. So we're going to, yeah, as I say, trim off the beginning and ends, just like we've done, and then move it right back to the beginning of the video, and then select the clip, Command copy, and then move to the end of frame, end of the clip, and then just paste away until it's the right length of the video. Then once we have all the clips copied out, we need to smooth over the loop, because right now we've got that kind of jumpy animation back to the start of the clip there, which we don't want. So we come over here to this side panel here, we go into the top options, toolbox, video transitions, and we've got the famous cross dissolve. That's the one we want, and we just simply drag and drop it out. Pay attention to make sure that it's kind of, well, the way I'm putting it in the center, so it's kind of equal lengths on both sides of the cut. You can weight it towards one side or the other, but I'm going for a center weighting here. And just continue that until you have your cross dissolves across all the clips in the timeline. And that's just a very quick run through of looping. So if we take a look at that now, it's nice and smooth and it's all good. So now let's take a look at how to apply masks to a clip in DaVinci Resolve. The way that I go about doing it is I go to the Fusion tab down at the bottom here, and then it's nice and simple to add in a nice ellipse mask, because we have various different mask options just here on the toolbar just below the video viewer. So we click on the circle, and that automatically puts in a circle kind of ellipse mask onto the video layer, which is great. That's perfect. That's what we want. And if we have a look over here on the right hand side, we have all of the different parameters for doing that. So what we can do is we can go to the edge border, we can shrink that down. Soft edge is kind of feathering, so adding that gradient, that transparency gradient, to make sure it's like not a hard edge but a nice soft edge. hence the term soft edge. And we can tweak around so it's nice and centered there and fiddle around until we've got it to a point where we are happy. Level, that's the overall level of transparency of the thing. So yeah, we'll play around with that edge width. Okay, that's good. Then we can go back down here to the very bottom. We can click on the Edit tab. We can go back and we can see now that we've just had that center ring selected, which is great. That's what we want. So next up, we bring down the slow moving space particles. This is going to be right down at the bottom, so place it down on video layer 1. If we go back to the beginning, there we can see the two layers together like that. Looking good so far. Again, we want to kind of loop this base layer, so I'm going to trim ever so slightly the beginning and the end, move that back to the beginning, Command C for copy, then paste, 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 and we'll add in some cross dissolves. As I say, I'm just doing quickly. I'm not doing the whole thing this time. I'm just showing you the applications in the different programs. So there's the looping again. Okay, and then what we want to do is to add in the faster particles now, so the more volatile stuff. Drag that down onto video layer 2. And this time we're going to be applying the blend modes. So what we need to do is click on the video clip. Again, we'll just do a couple of loops here, trimming the beginning and end, moving to the beginning, copying the clip, and pasting away and applying that cross dissolve transition. And one more, boom, nice. So that's all nicely looped. And what we're going to do is now we are going to come to the composite mode. So we have the composite settings here on this right hand panel here. And now we click on, well, the first option, which was the same as what we used in Final Cut Pro, was the add composite mode. So I select that. But again, you can kind of have a go through, select some of the different ones until you find something that kind of works for you. I mean, you might want something a bit more trippy. Let's see what that looks like. That looks pretty badass, actually. That's pretty cool, but not what we were doing before. So we'll just switch it back to add. That's what we had in the previous one. And then we can play around with the transform options to kind of get rid of this kind of orange static stuff down at the bottom. Okay, so to do that, we are going to zoom in. So in Final Cut Pro, this was actually called, it's actually called scale. So there's some slight differences in terms of terminology between different editing programs, but kind of once you get tuned into an editing program's lingo, then you kind of know where you're at really. Then we bring that video clip down, again paying attention to not bring it down too far so we see the edge of the video clip. So raising that up, there we go, that looks nice. Okay, and we'll play through that. So that's kind of a nice blend. Now what we want to do is to jump over to the color tab, and the idea with doing the color tab here is to kind of bring all of the video elements together. So we're just going to be tweaking these volatile particles to make them less yellow and more blue like the other two clips on the timeline. So in order to do that, what we're going to do is select, make sure you have the correct clip selected. Now, I'm going to be totally honest here. In terms of color correction stuff, DaVinci Resolve, well, if you don't know, DaVinci Resolve originally was just for color correcting and everything. So it has all of the features that you need to do kind of full-on professional color grading. Now, hand on heart, I have no idea what I'm doing when it comes to color correction. I'm just kind of fiddling around with the colors here until it kind of matches. So if you're a colorist and you're watching this, I apologize because I'm probably breaking every single rule in the rule book. But having said that, you know, with my shoot a scene challenge, getting better at color correction is definitely something that I want to do throughout the course of the year. All right, so we've got the clip selected, and what we're going to do is kind of play around a bit until we, so I want to bump up the blues, and with the gain here, we just want to drop down kind of all the other colors and maybe make the whole thing a bit darker. Again, not really knowing too much what I'm doing. I'm just eyeballing this thing until it looks kind of all tied together and nice. Looks like we're getting somewhere. So to see that, we're just going to jump back to the editing side and we'll just do that. Okay, it could probably do with a little bit more tweaking, but with this you kind of get the general idea. So the next thing to bring down now is Nico's logo, and we'll place that there. Again, we go over to the transform options. We can kind of zoom out, scale it down, and then in the composite section, we can add the add, and then we just tweak him a little over to the left, and maybe scale it down just a tiny bit more. There we go. All right. And then we stretch out Nico as long as we like, because it's a graphic and not a video clip with a set duration. And then for the final layer here, I'm just expanding out the timeline a bit. And then for the final layer here, which is going to add in the light leaks. And again, we're just placing those right on the very top, video layer 5. And again, coming over to the right hand side in the inspector window here, down to the composite settings and playing around with the different options until we find something that kind of works. And again, straight to the add option, and that works pretty well. So that is a very quick and brief run through of creating this looping animation within the DaVinci Resolve environment. So let's jump across now to Adobe Premiere, and I'll do exactly the same thing using all of the tools that are available in Adobe Premiere. Okay, hello Adobe Premiere users. As you undoubtedly already know, we are already in Adobe Premiere, and as you can see, I've already imported in the different clips that we're going to be using for making the animation. So we have the not the slow moving, those are the volatile particles. Then we have the ring animation, we have the kind of light leaks as well, the slow moving particles, as well as Nico's magical handwritten logo. So first things first, what we want to do is we want to bring down the universe clip, this kind of main circular animation, wormhole animation, or whatever you want to call it. So we'll bring that down and we'll create a new timeline with that. And first things first, what we want to do is raise it up to video layer 3, because we're going to have two video clips underneath the slow moving particles and the more volatile particles. And then on top of this layer, a bit later on, we'll add in Nico's logo, and then also the light leaks on the very, very top. Okay, so first things first, we'll talk about looping. So again, as I said in the Final Cut Pro tutorial, we're going to trim the beginning, trim the end, move the clip back to the beginning of the timeline, and then we're going to copy and paste. And paste. Again, we're going to move that up. And what you would do is you would paste this clip to make the video the length that you need. So however long the piece of music is, or however long the interview or podcast, or whatever you're doing this looping animation for. Then in between each of these edit points, obviously, we have the kind of jump cut right now. So let's have a look. So we have that jump cut where it goes back to the beginning of the clip. And what we're going to do is just smooth over that jump cut with the cross dissolve transition. So to do that, we go into the effects tab here, video transitions, dissolve, and there is the humble cross dissolve. And we simply drag and drop that onto the clips. And we can see there, if we zoom in a little bit, we can see the cross dissolve transition there between the two clips. All right, so let's have a look at that now. Oh, a buttery smooth transition for a nice smooth loop. And you would then apply the cross dissolve in between each of those clips until you have a nice smooth looping animation for the duration of the video. Okay, so next up is the next step for our animation is to apply a mask to to the universe clip, so then we only have selected the kind of ring animation, because we want to get rid of these static stars around the outside and add some movement with the other moving particle clips that we have imported. So what we do is we select the clip that we want to apply the transition to, and what we can go is up to the tab here on effects controls, opacity, and then here we have a number of different mask options. So we have the straight ellipse mask, the 4-point polygon mask, or the free draw Bezier mask drawing option. What we're going to be doing for this is the nice simple ellipse mask, so we can click on that and we have now an ellipse mask that is applied to our clip. And what we can do now is just kind of fiddle around with each of these 4 points, so we have it the rough size that we want, and then what we also want to do is come back over to the mask options that have now appeared once we applied the ellipse mask to the clip, and we want to play around with the mask feather as well to get a nice smooth kind of gradient around the edge of the mask that we've just applied. So that looks kind of nice. What we want to maybe do is mask expansion, maybe move it out just a little bit more. Do we really have all those nice kind of electricity parts to the animation as well? All right, so that looks pretty good. And the next step now is to bring in those kind of replacement moving particles that we're going to place underneath this clip on the timeline. So we go back to the project tab here where we have all of our media, and we're going to drag out, I think it's this space clip. Yes, the space clip. So these are the slow moving particles that we're going to place on video layer 1. And again, we would do the similar kind of thing of trimming the beginning, trimming the end, moving this clip back to the beginning and copying that clip and pasting it out as long as we need, and then effects tab, cross dissolve, dragging that out in between the clips to get nice smooth looping between the clips. Again, in terms of getting nice smooth looping, it does help to have clips that are similar towards the beginning and the end of clips, but all of that is explained in the first video that I did, where I go much more in depth into each of the different elements. Now, you'll see that in comparing the clip we see here on the left-hand side and the right-hand side, it looks really zoomed in. That's because this space clip is actually a 4K clip, and currently our timeline is HD clip, so 1920 by 1080. So we need to scale down this space clip so then we can see all of the particles in the clip. So what we do is we come up to effects controls, motion, and then here we have the scale option. So we scale that down, and I think it's down to about 34%. All right, so that's scaled down, and now we have our ring animation. In fact, I might just make that mask a little bit smaller. Let's bring down that edge expansion just so we're isolating, and then maybe bring down the feather a little more. Maybe just a little bit bigger with the expansion there. Anyway, you would spend time kind of fine-tuning this to suit your needs. Okay, so we have the slow-moving particles, and we've fine-tuned, refined a little bit the mask around the ring animation, and now what we want to do is to bring in the more volatile particles. So again, back to the project tab where we have all of our media, and then we bring down the volatile clip. Okay, so we've covered looping in Premiere, we've covered also applying a mask to a layer, and now finally we're going to be looking at applying blend modes, okay? So we have this clip down on the timeline, and we are going to come again to the effects control tab up here on the left hand side, and in the opacity section here we have blend modes, and again, just as with DaVinci Resolve and also Final Cut Pro 10, it's the drop down menu. Now, between programs, the different settings in the blend modes can change names a little bit. So again, it's just a case of kind of going through. I think we did a linear dodge or an add blend mode in the other two softwares. So we'll just apply that to there, and that's kind of what we're looking for a little bit, a nice kind of blending in between the two different settings there. So again, what we want to do is to kind of tint or tweak the colors in this on this star clip away from like a more yellowy, orangey, greeny tone to just like a more blue to unify the whole animation together. So what we're going to do is, with this clip selected, go to Effects, go to not Video Transitions but Video Effects, into the Color Corrections tab, and I'm just going to apply a tint to it. Then what we can do is play around with map white to blue. And again, you're kind of fiddling around with these until you get something that looks kind of like what you want. Okay, that looks okay. I mean, it could do with some more refining and playing around with some different color settings, but for the purposes of this tutorial, this will do for now. Okay, so now what we want to do is back to the project tab, and we'll bring down Nico's logo, and again, using the blend modes, we're just going to scale down. Well, first of all, before we apply the blend modes, we'll get it to the correct size and position in the composition here. So kind of over in the middle a bit, maybe scale it up a little bit more. There we go. And then again, in blend modes, we're going to run through a few different selections until we find the one that we want. So it's not quite that lighten. Yeah, lighten looks pretty good. Okay, so that is Nico's logo added. Let's take a look and see how that looks. Pretty good. Pretty good. Not too shabby. And then the final layer, right on the very top in the video layer number 5, we're going to add in the light leaks. So we take our dissolve layer and we drag it down onto the very top. And here we have our light leaks right at the very top. And again, we're just going to select the clip, go to the effects controls, and in the opacity effects section, we have the blend modes. Click on the drop down menu, and then we'll go for something like that, and we'll play through, make sure that that's all playing nicely, which it is. Okay, so what I'll do quickly here is I'll just do a quick render of the timeline, then we can take a look at the final result. So sequence, then render into out. Right, so that is looking pretty good. So that's how to apply looping, apply masks as well to different layers, and also play around with some different blending modes to kind of really merge together different video elements to create original and kind of more dynamic and customizable animations for use on things like, you know, animated music backgrounds, or maybe podcasts or interviews or things like that using Adobe Premiere. All right, so I think I've covered all the bases there, and I'm pretty sure I didn't cock up at any point, fingers crossed. Anyway, if anything was unclear in what I was showing you, please let me know in the comments down below. I'm happy to answer any questions. And I suppose with that said, well, I'll see you in the next one.